can't be in a relationship if you don't love yourself. Think about how many people try and change who they are because they're scared that the other person might not like them. Eventually, you're not going to be able to. And then what?
Ricki Liorti is a dynamic and engaging social media influencer, podcast host, entrepreneur, and most recently published author with a growing community.
Anytime a relationship has gone wrong, I've always wanted some form of closure. Even if I got it, it wouldn't have made
Doesn't make
a difference at all.
We all want closure, but does closure really mean anything?
No. In that journey of mine, it was the self-love piece that I had to learn.
It's tough to look in the mirror and like not love yourself. I've been there, and holy crap. First thing you do is you look at yourself. You look in the mirror and say, if I had done this differently, would this relationship have worked? If I had tried harder here, if I didn't say this, and ultimately, no, it wouldn't. Sometimes there's nothing you can do. Sometimes you're just not going to be enough for that person. There's nothing wrong with that. To somebody else, you will be the perfect amount of enoughness.
You think you're ready for a relationship? Ricki, what's going on? How you doing?
Doing great. Lots going on, though. Lots going on. As I obviously just told you, got this step challenge right now, and I didn't think it was going to be this hard.
300,000 steps.
300,000 steps
wild.
in 1 week. Yeah.
Why?
So I hit 250,000 followers on TikTok maybe a month ago.
Okay.
And I was like, I need to do something to celebrate. I'm big on celebrating the wins, acknowledging the losses, and just getting better, right? Especially social media is a little bit of a business for me now. I said, let's do something fun. My first idea was to eat 250 strawberries. That was idea one. Quickly shot that down. One of my friend's little sister was like, Ricki, why don't you do 250,000 steps in a week? And I'm like, okay, that seems pretty doable. Problem is I hit 300,000 within like not even 10 days. It was just a crazy month on social media. So I was like, okay, let me lock this in because if I get to 350, that's unachievable. So I said, I looked at my calendar. This was kind of the week that I wasn't insanely busy. And we decided to do 300,000 steps, 7 days. So it's about 43,000 steps a day. And it is grueling.
I bet.
It is just, like, the legs work. The legs are just, it's like a robot. The legs are just slowly puddling along. But the mind is just, man, it's tough.
Okay, so you're on this journey for 300,000 steps. How many steps have you done so far?
As of right now, I'm probably about 180-ish, 175.
And this is a Friday, so you've got the rest of...
I basically worked from home today, took the day off. So I've got the rest of the day today, all day Saturday, all day Sunday. So I'm hoping to do 50,000 today, 50,000 tomorrow, and then end it with a little bit of an easier walk on Sunday so I could go out and celebrate and do something fun.
I really like the fact that you're celebrating your wins.
Oh, big time.
Not a lot of people do that. I don't do that, and I struggle with that. I kind of take a win, and I go, okay, great, what's next? And then I look back on it and go, fuck, I really should take a moment to just let it sink in, let it settle.
Are you really goal-driven?
Yeah.
So and you really don't celebrate them?
No, it's hard. For me, it's like I get to a goal, and I go, great, I've achieved it, but as I'm about 80% near completion, I'm already thinking about what comes after that, and it's what keeps me going. And it's hard because at times then I won't stop to celebrate the wins, and it's only on the days where I'm feeling shitty about myself, something didn't go well, I just woke up in a bad mood, whatever the case may be, where I then have to sit there and go, okay, Samir, you're gonna have to actually start to think about your last few wins and realize how far along you've come. Right, this journey that you're on.
Yeah. Do you acknowledge the losses?
Oh, 100%. Yeah.
So if you acknowledge the losses, why don't you celebrate the wins?
It doesn't make sense. I know.
I've always been goal driven. I've always, it's not even New Year's. I always set goals for myself, and if it comes in my mind, as soon as it's in my mind, it's like crap. I got to set this goal now, and it's like clockwork. I think of something and it's boom, okay, as soon as I thought about it, we're doing it, let's set the goals and let's move on. Yeah. But I make sure I celebrate all the wins, because if you don't, then what's driving you to get those wins? I'm not saying the celebration is what drives me to get the wins, but it's nice to acknowledge, hey, I crushed this goal. I did a half Ironman last year, Ironman 70.3. And I trained so hard for it. I trained for 4 months, 20 hours a week almost. And then I finished and I was like, heck yeah. I lined up like 5 different things to celebrate. And I told everybody I could. I wore my medal around the office. I did everything I could. I was like, I'm going to a concert. What are we celebrating? We're going to go out. We're going to have a fun time because I just completed something that, I don't know, less than 1% of the human population can do. That's a big win for me. This little step challenge, even though it's so insignificant in the big picture, to me, this is a massive thing. Like I know how much I'm struggling with this, and I'm usually pretty good at these like physical challenges. So I'm going to make sure that once I finish this, I will be doing something to celebrate. I don't know what it's going to be yet, depending on how I feel Sunday night. But maybe Monday I'll treat myself to a really nice dinner, or maybe I'll go for a casual walk with a bunch of friends and have a couple of patio drinks on Monday. I don't know what it's going to be yet, but I know I will make sure to celebrate, because if you don't celebrate the wins and you don't acknowledge the losses, then you're never going to, maybe not never, but for me, I feel like I'm not able to move on to the next chapter and really, learn from my mistakes, or really even analyze how I won or how I achieved those goals. So I think celebrating the wins and acknowledging the losses is such a big part of goal setting.
How do you acknowledge your losses?
Oh man, I journal a lot.
Okay.
So when something doesn't go my way or doesn't go as planned, especially when it's a bigger goal, I'll sit there and I'll say, okay, what did I not do? Did it not go my way because of me? Is it something that I could have done? Is it an external factor? How could I have prepared differently? How could I don't want to say been better, but how could I have done things differently to achieve the goal? And you're not always going to win. Like you learn more from your losses than you do from your wins. And it's important to acknowledge them, because that's how you get better. And when you sit there and you really kind of write everything down and put up, pen to paper, you say, okay, well, this is where I think I went wrong. I'm not saying if I did this differently, I would have achieved my goals, but maybe that slight different thing would have gave me a different outcome. It's kind of like the butterfly effect, right? That a butterfly flaps its wings on one side of the world and creates a tsunami on the other. Like sometimes you can look back and say, that was it. That was that one day, today it's a rain day. Let's say I didn't walk today and I didn't achieve the goal. I can pinpoint I didn't hit 300,000 steps because of today. I had a bad day today. But sometimes it's not always black and white. Sometimes, the goals are a little bit bigger and not so black and white where, okay, maybe it was this, maybe it was that. But hey, the next time I do something, let me try this, let me try that. Let me, some goals I didn't achieve in the past, in a few years back, because I was just not focused enough. I wasn't driven enough on that one specific goal. I've had goals earlier this year that I didn't achieve, and I went back to the drawing board and said, why didn't it work? What was the issue? Was it me? Was it them? Was it my partners? What was it? And it's tough when you don't know. It's tough when you can't pinpoint exactly. But I think that's the process of growing. That's the whole process of analyzing things. Sometimes that you don't know. But if you can kind of learn to evolve and try things differently and keep going, because I don't know the exact quote, but something about like if you're making the same mistakes twice or 3 times, obviously you're not doing something right. It's like, hey, I made this mistake. Let's move forward. Yeah, I'll make a different mistake, but at least it's not the same one. Eventually, after 4 or 5 times, you'll probably get it right.
Yeah. So let's back step a second here. You're a digital creator. You own a pickleball team, which is really cool.
It's insane.
And I'm going to ask you about that in a moment. But you own the pickleball team. You have a book recently. Yeah. Congrats on that. And you seem to resonate with your audience when it comes to conversations around dating. And I think that's what makes this particular conversation enticing, because you talk about it from the lens of men, where we don't always openly talk about our dating experiences. You open up a social media app, it's very easy to find a girl on the app talking about, some really bad experience, or red flags, green flags, those kinds of things, but you rarely see guys doing that. Why is that important to you?
I think it's important to see that, and I hate saying this without sounding cocky or anything, but I'm okay with my looks. I'm a little bit above average on the physical scale, and I take really good care of my body. And people can see me and be like, oh, you can get any girl you want, or you can have your pick of the litter. Well, no, it's not how it works. Sometimes it's not just about looks, or sometimes maybe our personalities don't click, and sometimes you want people to say, hey, you're not the only one struggling with this. I am too. It's not easy. Like, dating in today's society isn't easy with all the options people have, and how the mentality of, if it's broken, let's get a new one, instead of if it's broken, let's fix it. So I want people to watch my content and say, you know what, like, fuck, him too? This asshole's going through the same thing I'm going through. This dude is in my head. How is he saying exactly what I'm thinking? Because you want people to know they're not alone, right? It happens to all of us. Dating is not easy. Finding your person is not easy at all. And it's one of the hardest things you can do because you're not renting a car for a week. You're not, renting a condo for a week. You're not picking what to eat for dinner. This is your life partner. This is the person you are going to spend the next 10,000 meals with. This is your forever travel companion. This is someone that you want to see forever with. That's why it's not so easy. And it's tough because even the person that you think is your forever person might not be. And we've all been through breakups. Everyone in this world who's over the age of 20-something has been through a breakup where they thought, hey, this is my person. And it's not. Sometimes you made a mistake. So I want people to know, hey, you're not the only one going through this. I'm going through it. This person's going through it. This person's going through it. If you go through my comments, if you think you're having a bad day with dating, go through my comments one day. And you'll realize, man, you are not going through a bad day at all. Trust me, there are people with a lot worse situations than you. And again, we've made a little community where I don't want to say we poke fun and we joke around about it, but hey, there's some things that are very serious that I talk about when it comes to dating and finding your person. And
like what?
I think one of the biggest things for me in terms of like the serious conversation is like, hey, don't rush. Don't just pick someone because society tells you it's time. I'm 34. I'm going to be 34 very soon. Society told me I should have been married in my late 20s, buying a house in the suburbs and starting to have kids by 30. Well, I haven't met the person I want to do that with yet. And I thought I have many times, and I was wrong. So I'm not going to listen to society. I'm going to listen to me and my heart and my brain and my mind. And when I meet the person that feels right, then I'll do it. Never mind the biological clock. So, and I know it's different. And people are going to say, Ricki, you're a man. It's easy for you to say that women have biological clocks. You're right. Women do have biological clocks. And it becomes a lot tougher after a certain age. But I'd much rather start a family in different forms than start a family just because of a biological clock or just because society tells me it's time to start a family. So I do try and bring up some more serious conversations with the content, but I also want to keep it cheeky and lighthearted where people can come and, I don't want to say escape their crappy dating situation, but they can come and have a good laugh and know that, hey, you know what? It's not just you. It's me too. It's all of us.
Man. What, have you always been this way? So open about the dating experience, the basically talking about things that you don't hear guys talk about very often. I mean, I talk about them. The guys that come on this podcast are open to talking about them, but for the most part in society, a lot of dudes are not.
Pretty,
they're shut down.
Yeah. I don't think I've always been I've always been an extrovert. I've always, been a very social person, very outgoing. I think when I battled depression in 2017, 2018, around that time, I think that changed a lot of things for me. Because it's like, hey, you're not bulletproof. You're not the tough man that everybody wants you to be, right? Life isn't always perfect. And I opened up about that. And once you start opening up about that, talking about anything else is a lot easier. Like, I can talk about my crappy dating situation because I've told the world how I suffered from something that you can't see. And on the outside, everyone's like, oh, Ricki, like you've got it together, right? You got a good family, you got a good job, you got a roof over your head, you got food on the table, you got amazing friends. I've had beautiful partners in the past. And that doesn't mean shit when you're battling something. Like internally, when you're having those days where, you don't want to wake up, nobody cares about anything else. Sorry, not nobody. You don't care about anything else. You don't care about how much money you make. You don't care how beautiful or amazing your partner is, how fun your friends are, where you're traveling to next. None of that matters. You're just trying to get out of bed in that morning. So once you open up about something like that, what's talking about dating like to me? It's nothing. It's a walk in the park compared to opening about, those dark days.
What triggered the depression?
I've always explained this kind of, and I explained this to you earlier too, but picture this little plate as your life. Your plate or this little coaster is your life. It's held up all these pillars, right? My fingers are the pillars. You got your family, you got your friends, you got your career, you got your hobbies, you got your social life. You got all these pillars. One pillar that was a bad one. One pillar goes down, it's no big deal, right? You and your friends are fighting, no big deal. Your career's good, your social life is good, your hobbies are fun, everything else is good. Well, now your friends are fighting and, you got work isn't good. You just got fired or something. Okay, well, 2 out of 5 or 6, you're still plugging along. Maybe not as strong as you should. You're not walking as fast as you should, but you're still strutting along. When 3 or 4 start to fall, then your whole life starts teetering. And that's kind of just what happened to me. Like I remember the day it happened. I wasn't seeing my family and my friends as much as I wanted to. Work was crazy and busy and I wasn't as focused as I needed to be. I was drinking a lot at the time, not like anything out of the ordinary, but like just more than a normal person should. And I thought it was normal because, it's Friday, Saturday. Cool, let's go drinking. But I just came to the point where everything happened at once. And I remember I was driving in like a Etobicoke, Mississauga area, and it just hit me like a ton of bricks. And I just pulled over. I remember calling my mom thinking like, I don't know what the fuck is wrong, but I am not okay. And my mom, God bless her soul, she's my rock. She basically called the therapist right away. And within like 4 hours, I went to a therapy session. And I have no shame with that. I think therapy is the single best thing you can do for mental health and anything, not even just mental health, any sort of mindfulness or any sort of mind routine. I think it's amazing for, because look, you go to when your teeth are fine, you still go to the dentist for a checkup. Sometimes you still get a massage, even if nothing really hurts. You go see the chiro just to make sure your bones are in line. Why not go see a therapist, even if your mind isn't hurting, just for that checkup? That day obviously wasn't a checkup. I went to see the one. I vented and cried for about an hour straight, but I didn't feel the connection. I went to another one maybe a couple of days later, and then I went to what is now my therapist, and she was the third person, and I've been with her since 2017. I don't go as often as I should now. Now I do go more so for checkups, but I still try and go 3 or 4 times a year, once a quarter. And most people don't know this. Like 95% of benefit plans cover therapy.
Yeah.
You get a $500 budget or a $1,000 budget. Therapy is about $120, $150, depending where you go. So you can get 3 to 4 therapy sessions a year for free.
It's interesting because the comment you make about not feeling or a connection with that first therapist, I think is something where it's already hard enough to get people to go see a therapist. But then if they go and they don't feel that connection, they automatically dismiss the whole thing and say, look, see, it doesn't work for me, as opposed to trying to find another one where you do feel that connection. Because I can speak to that. Once you have that connection, it just feels right. You don't feel like you're just paying someone. It's not transactional anymore. It's someone helping you professionally to get you to where you need to get to.
And it's funny because most people think like, what did they teach you? It's, well, not what did they teach you. It's like, what questions did they ask me that made me think about things differently? When we talk to our friends and we vent, none of us are trained professionals. Sorry, not none of us, but, our friends aren't trained professionals majority of the time. So they'll ask questions and they'll do the best they can. And talking and opening up to your loved ones, your friends, and your family is one of the most important things you can do too. But sometimes you tell a story to your therapist and they ask you a question that you wouldn't have even thought of. And I'm like, why the hell are they asking me this? And then you start talking, I'm like, now I know exactly why they asked me this question, because this connects to something else in a previous session that opened up a new box that made me think about things differently. And, I use the example of teachers. You think about how many teachers you have in your life going through school. Some you love, some you didn't. The ones that you loved made a very big impact on your future. The ones that you didn't, maybe didn't. So if someone goes to a therapist and they didn't feel that connection, no big deal. Go to the next one. Try another until you find, because when you find your therapist, I've got so many friends that go to therapy now, and I've recommended my therapist to too many of my friends and like people I know where she won't take any more of my friends. She goes, Ricki, it's too connected now. Like, please, no more referrals anymore. I say that jokingly, but she, I sat down with her. I felt something. I felt good. I felt at home. I felt at ease. And anyone who does therapy, after a good therapy session, you feel like $1 million.
Yeah.
Like, when you finish a good workout, a good Barry's class or something, you feel like $1 million. You're like, oh yeah, I feel like I'm the most jacked guy in the world. You finish a good therapy session, that puts any workout to shame. I feel like I can walk out of there and I'm just, what are we doing today? How am I conquering the world? It's like, Ricki, it's 9 p.m. Like, let's go to bed. But I love it.
Okay, so what would you say then to the guys out there listening to this, watching this, even some of whom are probably in your circle who see this, hear this, know you, and are still resistant to it? What would you say to them? How do you encourage them to go out and get that kind of help? Because we still struggle. Like, guys have this barrier that's set on us from society, but also self-inflicted. Yep. Where we just go, if we were to express ourselves this way, we're going to get shunned for it. I had on a music artist who talked about how he's celebrated for his vulnerability because he's got a big platform. Someone sees you, sees the social media accounts and goes, well, it's easy to express vulnerability because all the comments are supporting you. But if I were to express vulnerability to my closest people, I might get shunned and shut down. What do you say to those guys?
It's never going to be easy. And when I in 2017, when I started going to therapy, I didn't have any of the social media stuff. Like this is all the last couple of years. But when I started, I was, I had no social media following. I was working in construction, which I still do. And I was doing other odds and ends. But I remember telling my friends, and they all said the same thing. Like, what? You suffer from depression? Since when? How? You're always smiling. You're always happy. And I put on a smile every time I went out. And I tried to live life as best as I could when I was suffering. Some days you couldn't. Some days you could. Some days you put on that mask and you wear that character. But some days you couldn't. And to anybody that's listening that's thinking, I don't know if it's for me, I don't know. Sometimes you don't know what's for you until you try it. Your favorite food in the world, you didn't know was your favorite food until you ate it for the first time. Your favorite restaurant, your favorite person, your favorite whatever. You didn't know how important that person or that thing was to you until you tried it for the first time. So what do you have to lose? Go there, sit there. If it doesn't work, you lost nothing. It's an hour, maybe a little bit longer, a little bit shorter, whatever. But you can sit down and tell someone about your life. And the worst case scenario, you talked for an hour. And there's nothing wrong with that. Best case scenario, you opened up things that you never knew were inside of you. You got to talk about your feelings and emotions in ways that you didn't even know was possible. And sometimes you walk out of there and say, holy crap, like, I didn't realize how much I love that. And I've told so many of my friends, and a lot of my friends have listened, and like, even though they're not battling, even though they're not struggling, they'll go just because they know how important it is. And they know how much of a difference it made in my life. And I was never suicidal. I was never thinking about taking my own life. But I remember at my darkest days, I didn't want to get out of bed. I was hoping I wouldn't wake up. I was like, you know what? If I can get to the place I am now from that place, like, imagine what it could do to someone that's already 10 steps ahead of me. Right? I remember on my darkest of days, and I used to live in City Place. There was a homeless guy right outside my like unit, basically. He lived right outside of my condo. And I remember one morning being jealous of the homeless guy. I'm like, nobody needs him. Nobody's relying on him. Nobody's breaking his balls. Nobody wants anything from him. He's just sitting there on the street chilling. And I remember being like I'm like, I wish I could just do that right now. I wish I could just park the car, get out, sit there, and the world doesn't need me today. That's a dark place. It's a really dark place for someone who's got a good amount of things going for him. But at that point, it didn't matter to me. I was just like, you know what? I want to just disappear from the world. And therapy was a big reason I got past that. And to where I am now, I'm not saying it was just therapy. I have amazing friends. I have amazing family. I've got everything else sorted again. But therapy was what helped me get back to who I am and helped me get to the places I am now. And for anyone listening, if you think that you think you're the best version of yourself, go to therapy. See if there's a better version of you. And if there's not, then at least you know you're at the best version of yourself.
You talked about the pillars in your life falling. What were those pillars?
I think our lives are held up by, these pillars. Like, your family is a very big part of your life, right? Like my mom, my dad, my brother, now my sister-in-law, my little nephew are a big, massive part of my life. My friends, another big part of my life. My career, like, my career goals and what I'm doing, the majority of my week, big goals. My relationships, I think for anyone who says their relationships aren't a big part of their lives, even if you're single, the want to find a relationship weighs on you, or whatever stage you are in your phases of love, it weighs on you a lot. Your hobbies and your interests and the things you love doing, those are what basically make a person, in my opinion, right? Obviously, there's a lot more to it than just that, like your health and whatever. But those were the big things, and my family wasn't as strong as we are now because we're changing in life. I wasn't living with my brother at the time for the first time in many years. My parents were focusing on work and doing other things. Friends, we weren't going out seeing each other as much as we were because some friends were traveling, some friends had girlfriends now, they weren't coming out as much, and we weren't as tight of a knit as we used to be. I wasn't playing as many sports as I was. My hobbies that I usually loved doing, I wasn't playing just because of the time of the year. My relationship, I was the most toxic relationship ever. And you can't get out of it because sometimes, you love the person and you can't step out of it because, again, it's toxic, but here you are. I forget the other pillar, but you know what I mean? A lot of the times that...
Well, let's talk about the toxic part because I think that's such a powerful point when it comes to dating and relationships today. There's so many people I encounter who talk about having been in a toxic relationship or in one now, and it's almost like they're completely helpless. they're self-aware enough to know that they're in it or that they were in it, but for so long they were unable to get out of it, or right now still can't find a way out.
It's tough.
What's happening there?
I think the problem is you love the person so much, and you know you love the person, and your mind is telling you to get out because it's toxic, but your heart is telling you to stay.
Is it love though, or is it just comfort in the discomfort?
It depends. Everybody's different, obviously. I know with mine it was love. Like I was with one of my long-term girlfriends when I was younger. It was love. Like I was obsessed with her. I was in love with her. We had so much fun, but there were some big characteristics between us that just didn't click and made it really toxic. And it was so tough. And we used to fight so bad, and I was part of it. Anyone that's in a toxic relationship, you know, I'm not saying both people are always toxic, but usually it takes two to tango. I've always heard, oh, my ex was so toxic. My ex was so toxic. Like, you know, did you play a part in this, or were you completely innocent in this? Because if you were completely innocent, maybe you would have walked away a little bit early. Sometimes, you know, maybe you poked at their insecurities, or maybe you did certain things that didn't help that other person and created that toxic environment. So sometimes it's tough to leave, and I've been there. I've been there, and I've had relationships too, even one of my previous relationships, where they'll just walk away, and it's like, you know, I can't. Like, good for you. I don't have that strength to just walk away from something that's not going right. I'm the type that I'll fight. I'll do everything I can to make it work, and I'll try and clear the toxic air or the toxic water and make it work again. But some people are like, no, this is toxic. I'm out. And sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't, but it's tough.
I used to be that way. I used to be I'll fight for it no matter what. And then I went through a really shitty divorce, and that created this sort of guardrail. And now I'm at a point where any relationship, not just romantic, friendships, family, business, if I find that it's toxic, I'm out.
Yeah.
And you know what? The pain of ripping off that Band-Aid like that is much easier than prolonging that pain and ultimately making it worse.
Yeah.
But it's a process.
But again, it took you that, you know, painful divorce to see that.
Oh, yeah, 100%.
I'm sure maybe 10 years ago, sometimes you would let the toxicity slide a little bit because you're in it.
Oh,
then
yeah.
you go through that monumental change in your life where you're like, whoa, holy crap, I never want to be in this spot ever again.
Yep.
And it's kind of one of the things that I guess, I don't want to speak on your behalf, but probably you learned from that divorce. You said, hey, I went through this. This sucked. This was painful. Same with me and my ex. When me and my ex broke up, I remember I've been single for 4 years since my long-term ex, minus my little relationship I had recently. I was single for 4 years because I said I knew how toxic that relationship was. I knew how hard it was. I knew how much it strained me, my mind, my body, and my everything. I won't get in another relationship until, one, I'm mentally there and I know what I want and I know the type of person I want. And then two, like, I know that I'm mature enough to not be jealous, because I was part of the toxic problem too. I got jealous over things that shouldn't have been jealous about. We've all been there. And anybody that says they're never jealous, like, okay, maybe you're not as jealous, but everybody's jealous. And to be a little bit jealous is healthy in a sense, right? You know, you should love your partner that much where a little bit of jealousy is okay. I'm not saying you should be jealous because they're wearing a certain outfit to a bar or a club. Okay, that's maybe where we draw the line. But, you know, to not want your partner flirting with other people, like, yeah, okay, that's, you know, you could see that would make someone jealous. But I think a little bit of jealousy is fine. And, you know, if you can learn how to not add to the toxicity of a relationship, then you know that you're ready to go into another one. And I was single for literally 4 years. From my previous ex was before COVID. So, you know, we broke up in 2020, early 2020. And then I dated someone recently for about a month and a half, 2 months. And it was almost 4 years between between the two relationships.
You think you're ready for a relationship?
Yeah. The problem is I know what I want now, and I'm looking for a very specific person.
What's that?
I'm looking for someone who's beautiful inside and out, someone who's caring, someone who's family oriented, someone who loves the things I love, you know, loves going for walks, loves being outside, you know, is very confident with who they are and who I am in our relationship and what we're about together. Someone who's goal driven and wants to, I don't want to say take over the world, but someone who wants to celebrate the wins and someone who strives to be better every single day.
Yeah.
And, you know, I thought I met somebody and it didn't work out. And it's not that I'm staying away from love because it didn't work. It's like, no, it didn't work. And it broke my heart. But at the same time, you know, I was single for 4 years. I'm ready to get back on the horse. Okay, sometimes, you know, I'm not on dating apps swiping every day trying to meet my person, but if I meet my person, then I'm more than happy with it, and I'd be excited for it. But am I actively doing everything I can to go out there and find someone? No, because I think it should happen naturally. I think it should happen organically. Just, I'm so driven with all my other goals. Relationship goals it's like the last thing on my to-do list. It's like finding a girlfriend is literally the last thing on my goals for the year. It's always at the very bottom. I set all my goals every year, and I look at my goals every year, and literally the relationships is always at the bottom. I got my friendships and my personal goals. I got my health goals. I got my career goals. I got all my random things I do goals. And the relationship's always at the bottom. If it happens, I'd love it. Again, I met somebody recently, and it was magical. It was one of the best relationships I've ever had. It didn't work, and you move on, and that's how it goes. But I do think I'm ready. And it's just, when I meet my person, it's not easy because, again, I'm possibly one of the pickiest men on this planet. And I do believe people should be picky. I think if everybody was a little bit pickier, they would find their perfect person. Just, sometimes it's tough because society tells us we should be married with kids by 30. Our family and friends put pressure on us. Like, I don't know if you got siblings. As soon as my brother got married or found his partner and got engaged, the "you're next" comments.
Yeah.
Yo, you're next. Yo, how's your dating going?
And it happens at the wedding too.
Oh, before the wedding it starts. I started dating my previous girlfriend, earlier this year, and everyone's like, "Oh, okay, so when are you guys gonna get married?" It's like, we literally just started dating.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, well, if you guys said I love you yet, it's like, why is that don't you want to know what she does? Don't you want to know who she is? Like, don't you want to hear about her? It's like, why is it, oh, okay, we're getting ready, you're next. It's like, what if I don't want to be next? What if I want to take my sweet ass time? What if I want to travel the world with my person before we get married? What if I want to have kids before we settle down together? What if I want to do anything I want to do? But again, society and the external pressures kind of force you. But I'm very thankful that I don't give a fuck what other people think. And I don't want to say I'm too selfish, but I am selfish to the point where outside of my close circle, I don't give a fuck what anybody thinks. You can think this, great. That's your life. You go do that for yourself. I'm going to do what makes me happy, because at the end of the day, when I put my head on my bed and I close my eyes and I go to bed, nobody's with me. It is me, my own thoughts, my own feelings, my own actions, my own words. And I got to be happy with that person when I go to bed at night, because if not, it's a slippery slope. And, people are always trying to please other people. Well, what are those other people doing for you when you go to bed at night? Fuck all. You are the one that you got to deal with each and every single waking moment in your own mind. And the mind is more powerful than anything else in this world. And anyone who disagrees with that is completely out to lunch. The mind is everything. And if you're not happy with what's going on in your mind, you are in big, big trouble.
So the dating scene today, a lot of comments that we've received on the pod whenever we've had dating conversations have been around how when guys open up and talk about, this is my boundary, or this is what I'm looking for, or I need someone that I can be myself, and if I am going through a tough day, I can express that to my partner. We've had comments saying if you do something like that, you're not going to find a partner. Do you agree with that?
Oh man, that's a tough one. I agree with it in a sense, but it's also, maybe you're not find your person yet. It might be a little bit harder to. But at the end of the day, like I said this before, you have to be yourself. You have to tell people your boundaries, tell people what you want, tell people what you don't want. I'd rather not go on a second or a third date than tell someone my boundaries 10, 20 dates in when I really care about this person, but then we find out that our core values don't fully align, or my long-term goals and your long-term goals don't align, then, all right, shit, we're in trouble here. Because now we're too far gone to leave. After 20 dates, you're good chance you might have real serious feelings for somebody. You might be in love. Well, what now? What, you don't want kids? I want kids? Well, shit, we should have talked about this early on. And I'm not saying on a first date you're dropping, hey, I want kids, I don't want kids, I want to get married by this age. But there's subtle ways to introduce things. And I'll give an example. Maybe about 2 years ago, I went on a date with a mother. Beautiful lady. She's got a 7-year-old daughter. And we had an amazing time. Literally an amazing time. I knew she had a daughter. There's nothing wrong with that. We went on a second date, and on the second date, she asked, what are we? I was like, well, I don't want to put labels on anything right now. That's not how I work. I like to just see where things take us. I like you. Let's keep hanging out. Let's keep doing this. Didn't work for her. She's like, no, that's not going to work for me. I've got very set timelines. I want this to happen by this date. And I was like, cool. I respect that. Thank you. Just that doesn't work for me. We had a great night. After that, we didn't talk. She's now got everything she wants with a different man, and I couldn't be happier for her. Just I wasn't what she was looking for. And there's nothing wrong with that. You are never going to be everybody's cup of tea. But there is someone out there that you will be their perfect cup of tea. And I strongly believe that. I believe everyone's got a soulmate out there. I believe everyone's got like 10 soulmates out there. You just got to go and find them. That's
10 soulmates.
maybe 20.
I've heard the multiple soulmates.
Yeah, I don't believe that there's only one person for you out there, because what if my one person lives in like Brazil? I'm Brazilian too. I could go down to Brazil and find a soulmate. Like my mom and dad. My dad's from Canada. My mom's from Brazil. How they met is the craziest story ever. They were soulmates. They're still together after 40 years, and they are yin and yang, two complete opposites, but they match each other perfectly. And they're still together. 40. I think they're going to be on 40 years soon, actually.
What have you learned from that relationship?
I learned that you don't have to be the same person. You know,
which is so important.
Which is my previous, actually most of my relationships, we've been very similar. Even my previous relationship, we were identical. Like we were two peas in a pod, and it didn't work. And sometimes you're like, why didn't it work? We're the same person. This should have worked perfectly. You know, we have the same goals. We're same driven. We love to travel. We love our families. There was so many boxes that got checked. That doesn't mean it. That doesn't mean you're perfect for one another. Sometimes you need someone who's maybe a type A or a type B. Maybe you need someone that's a little bit more forgiving and someone that's a little bit more understanding. Maybe you need someone that's more outgoing and someone's a little more quiet. You don't know. But as long as you find that person that you match with perfectly, and it's tough to find that person. Obviously, if it was easy, everybody would be doing it and everyone would be married 40 years. It's not easy to do. Let's call a spade a spade. It's fucking tough to find your person. But I've always said I won't get married until I find what they have. And they showed me that, you know, they're going to fight. I've seen, Mom, I know my mom's listening to this. I've seen some fucking fights. I've seen fights where I'm like, oh shit, man, is this the one? Like, is this the one that ends it? But they always come back to each other, and they love each other so much, and that's what I want. I want to grow old with somebody. I want to grow old, and until I might find that exact person, I will happily be single, and I will happily be out here doing the bullshit I'm doing on a daily basis, and having fun and living life and traveling and beating to the sound of my own drum. Because at the end of the day, like I said, I care about me and my happiness the most right now. Until I meet my person and decide, hey, this is us now, I'm gonna keep doing my own shit. And one day I will find the person. I joke about it all the time, like fuck, it's tough, right? But I do believe everyone's got their person or their persons out there. You just gotta go and find them. And sometimes they're not always in plain sight. Sometimes you have to work to find them. Sometimes the person might be right there. You just didn't even know it. Like how many times do we hear stories about people dating someone they met in high school like 10 years later? It's just, hey, maybe you got to grow. Maybe the timing wasn't right before. You never know.
Well, you talked about how tough it is to find people in the space. Why is it so tough these days? I mean, I my theory on this is, so I'm in a relationship. It's a wonderful relationship. And every time I talk to someone who's single and tells me about what dating is like today, I'm just like, I don't want to be a part of that. It's to your point earlier. It's like, oh, I can just find another one. It's very quick to just jump to the next. And everyone's afraid of telling each other what they think, how they feel, because everyone's just playing a game with each other. And I think deep down, ultimately, everyone just is yearning for someone to want them as much as they want the other person. But nobody wants to just say it.
It's tough because 20, 30 years ago, you dated people from your hometown because that's what you had accessibility to. Yeah. Now there's thousands of people, hundreds of thousands of people, literally just a swipe away. And I wish we can go back to our parents' time. We're roughly the same age. I wish we can go back to our parents' time where it was, if it's broken, you're not throwing it out, you're fixing it. Like there's that old Chinese proverb, I think, where it's, you know, when glass shatters, they put it back together with like a special gold or glue to make it stronger and more beautiful than it used to be. I don't know the exact quote, but you know, that's what a lot of our parents, like, you know, the divorce rate 20 years ago isn't what it is now. A lot of times people, if it's broken, okay, well, I can go on this app and, oh, look at this beautiful girl or beautiful man. And okay, let me just swipe right. Oh, they swiped right with me too. Look at that. Whereas 20, 30 years ago, people didn't have those options. So I'm of the strong believer that dating is the same as it is now than it was 23 years ago. The only difference is the options. If someone is the type of person that they meet someone and they love them and they want to see it through, then they'll see it through. And sometimes you do your best and you can't. I've decided to stay single until I meet someone that's going to, you know, I don't want to say go to war with me, but no relationship's easy. Like I told you, I've seen my mom and dad go to war, but they went to war together. And it wasn't mom versus dad. It was mom and dad versus the problem. And that's what you're looking for.
Externalizing it.
Yeah. And, again, I was in a relationship earlier this year, and, he thought this was my person. It was a short relationship, but I was like, this is it. This is my person. I might marry this fucking person. And it didn't. We went to war, and it quickly became, me versus her. And it was like, hey, this isn't me versus you. I'm on your side. Let's make this work. And sometimes you can't. Sometimes, people don't have the same willingness to fight that you do. And again, it just showed me that it wasn't my person. And I'm not talking bad about her. I'm not saying that she's a bad person because she didn't want to go to work. No, she wanted different things than I did. And that's tough to look. It's tough to look inside and be like, fuck. I check off the boxes. And I still wasn't enough. So it's tough. Like, that hits you like a fucking ton of bricks sometimes. You're like, shit. Talking about goals. Like, hey, that was one of the goals when we started dating. Okay, like, I want to see this through. And then 2 months later, you're broken up, you're not even talking, blocked and everything. It's like, shit. All right, let's look back on this relationship. What could I have done differently? What could I have done better? And sometimes there's nothing you can do. Sometimes you're just not going to be enough for that person. There's nothing wrong with that. Because to somebody else, you will be the perfect amount of enoughness. If that's even a word.
It is now.
It is now,
But it's also why I believe that whenever like in the past, anytime a relationship has gone wrong, I've always wanted some form of closure. And it wasn't until I got older that I realized even if I got it, it wouldn't have made
doesn't make
a difference at all.
We all want closure, but does closure really mean anything?
No.
No, it doesn't.
No, because ultimately your ability to move forward and move on is going to come from within you. It's not going to come from anything that person says.
Yeah.
They could humor you. They can put on a show and make you really believe everything. And you'll still feel like shit on the inside. It won't take away the fact that that person that you wanted there is no longer there. It'll maybe make you feel better for a day, if that.
That's it.
No.
It might give you temporary reliefness.
Yeah.
But that's not what you're looking for long term. That's not going to help you heal. It's not going to help you move on and be a better person. It's not. And, like even me, like I had to look deep inside after my previous relationship because it was the first person I dated in 4 years. It was the first time I gave my heart to someone that you trusted them to protect it and they didn't. And it fucking sucks. And I remember sitting there thinking, like, why do I even bother? I could just keep being single, just keep, strutting along, doing my same old bullshit, and I can just keep being me. But then you're like, you know what? This is the person. And I made a mistake. I can openly admit it. It wasn't the right person. I thought it was. It wasn't. And it's tough because it weighed on me a lot. Like, what could I have done differently? Why didn't this work? And I evaluated this relationship just like I would any other goal that I didn't achieve. And the first thing you do is you look at yourself. You look in the mirror and say, fuck, like, if I had done this differently, would this relationship have worked? If I had tried harder here, if I didn't say this, if maybe I was more clear about this and that, would it have worked? And ultimately, no, it wouldn't have. Because no matter what I would have done differently, I wouldn't have been enough for her. And, when you finally come to that realization, you're journaling all your thoughts and you're like, fuck, no matter what I did, I wasn't enough. That's a tough pill to swallow.
I was going to say, does that make you feel less then?
In the short term, it does. But I do believe that everything happens for a reason. And, being pushed to that point of not being enough made me work on myself harder. Made me put my head down, work on my career, work on my health, physical and mental. Made me work on new projects. Made me, quit trying to chase these highs and stay home and stay put and focus on me. Because not being enough is tough. It is I'm one of the most confident people you'll ever meet too. So to not be enough for someone, holy fuck, like that popped my balloon big time. But it brought me back down to reality, brought me back to my roots. It brought me back to the things that really mattered to me and who I am at my core, my pillars. Stick to those pillars and make sure all those pillars are good. And that's what I did. We've been broken up for many months now, and I'm not saying I'm the best version of myself, but I've done things since this breakup that I would have never thought imaginable. I wrote a fucking book. I'm borderline illiterate, literally. And I wrote a fucking book. I'm not good with words, and I wrote a poetry book about love. So what the fuck? I've lost 10 pounds. I was never big, but I got in the best shape of my life accidentally because the gym is one thing that's always been a steady thing for me my entire life. Got back in the gym 2 times a day. I was eating healthy because I was like, I'm putting all this bullshit processed food in my body. Let me get on a diet. Let me start intermittent fasting. Let me start focusing on what I'm putting in my body. You know, walking with my mom and dad. And that's a big thing about this stepchild too. It's like, I get to walk with my mom. And like I said earlier, my mom's my fucking rock. I love this lady to death. I would, you know, she'd kill someone. I'm saying, where are we burying the body? I wouldn't even think twice. This is my person. And I get to spend so much more time with her. My career, I put my head down. I got back to work and I started focusing on that, because sometimes in your relationship, let me leave work early to do this. Let me go here, do this. Like, hey, no, let's get back to work. Let's start focusing again. Let's focus on the projects, whether it's the pickleball team, the podcast, my day job, one of the other million other things I'm trying to do. Hey, let's focus in on this. Let's stop planning travels. Let's stop running away from our problems. Let's sit here. Let's face them. Let's get better, because maybe I wasn't enough. And then at the end of the day, once you kind of reach that point where, I'm not saying you're over them and you realize, oh, I'm better than them. No, it's not that. But once you reach that point where you're like, fuck it, it wasn't me. But at least I got to that point where it wasn't me, and I'm like, hey, at least I'm the best version of myself now. So the next person I meet isn't going to meet this half-assed version of me. They're going to meet the best possible version of myself, because I don't want to introduce anybody to a lesser version of myself.
How do you maintain that version of you in any new relationships? Because we let that version go, and then when we leave a relationship, we have this chip on our shoulders and we go, fuck, I'm going to make this new version the best version of me, and it's just a rinse and repeat.
Yep.
But how do you maintain yourself throughout?
I think the biggest thing is finding a partner that aligns with the best version of yourself. You know, I've always said this. I can't date someone who doesn't work out, because I love physical fitness. I love running half marathons. I love going for walks. I love going to the gym. I love doing these random workout classes. Well, if I dated someone who didn't love those things, then I would stop loving them as much. I love to travel. Traveling fills my cup. It makes me whole. If I dated someone who didn't love to travel, then I might stop traveling. So to maintain this high version of yourself that I hold, so like to me personally, I hold this new version of me that I am now. Like I'm holding on to this, because I feel that I'm at one of the best stages in my life ever. The next person I meet will have to be at the same level, because if I'm, you know, let's say I'm 99 out of 100 right now. Well, if I date someone who's 80, they're 80 out of their 100, or maybe they're an 80 out of 100 to me. Well, now we're at 99 plus 80. What's that, 179? Well, now divided by 2, we're only half the person. We're not 99% each. But if I meet a person who's like me, who's got the same goals, who's got the same drive, the same interests, hobbies, well, yeah, maybe they're a 99 out of 100. Together, we're almost whole together. I think that's a big thing. But what the fuck do I know? I'm single here, so maybe you can provide some insight on that
one. Honestly, it's I guess a mixture of what you said, but also understanding that you are who you are, and you maintain that form of self, that you never shift for anyone else.
Yeah.
Right? Like, your foundation is who you are. And when someone enters your life, whether it's your partner, your friend, your family member, they will color your person, but your foundation stays the same.
Who you are.
Yeah. So I used to be this kid where, you know, if my girlfriend at the time wanted me to be funny, I would do whatever it took to make her laugh. If she wanted me to be serious, I'd do whatever it took to just stay serious the whole time. I molded myself to fit that person. Yeah. After I split up with my ex, I realized I'm like, I don't even know who the fuck I am anymore. I have no identity. I don't know what I like. I don't know what I don't like, because everything was tied to who that person was. I was so-and-so's husband. I was so-and-so's son-in-law. I was so-and-so's brother-in-law. That's it. That was my identity in a box. That relationship ends, and I'm sitting there during the pandemic going, I don't know who the fuck I am anymore. I don't know where I'm going. I don't know what I'm doing. And so building that version of me up got me to a point where now I very much believe that version will stay throughout any relationships I have, because I can't afford and risk to lose myself like that again.
Well, there's I read this quote, actually. Funny enough, I made a TikTok about it. And the quote said, most people think the hardest part is losing the person you love. But in reality, the hardest thing is losing yourself and loving someone else so much that you forget that you matter too.
Mm-hmm.
And like, it gives me goosebumps even just saying this. And I still, like, I very rarely remember the quotes I read. I remember that one because it's true. Sometimes you could love someone so much and just want to be enough for them that you forget that you matter too. And I've always like strongly believe that you always need to put yourself first, because there's a reason when you're on the plane, they tell you to put your oxygen mask on first before helping others.
Mm-hmm.
There's a reason, because you can't help others if you're not full, if you're not whole. There's nothing you can do. And I strongly believe when you are the best version of yourself, everyone around you will benefit. Because like I'll speak personally. I don't have many talents. I'm a very talentless person. One talent I have is I can make people feel good about themselves. I can sit down with someone and make them feel good, make them feel whole, make them smile, bring a light to their life. That's one talent I have. When I'm not me, I'm nobody's shining around me for sure, because I don't have any light to give. I don't have any glow. I don't have any vibes, for lack of a better word. But when I'm me and I'm this whole person that I normally am, and when I'm at my best, people just want to, we can sit beside each other and just crush goals together because I'm at my best version. And I think that's the same for everybody else. If you're not the best version of yourself, you can't help others. You know, you can't be in a relationship if you don't love yourself. That's one of the biggest things I've learned. I've met women that, you know, I thought I was going to love, but they didn't even love themselves. They were missing a part of themselves and then trying to find it in somebody else. And you can't do that.
I think that's the biggest thing there is trying to, a lot of people are trying to find themselves
in someone else.
Yeah. And it doesn't work, because ultimately you're just going to try to fit yourself into that and go, oh, there I am.
Well, think about how many people try and change who they are or don't show their full true selves because they're scared that the other person might not like them. Well, what happens in a year from now? What, you're going to keep wearing this mask? You're going to keep wearing this, like, keep this facade up? Eventually, you're not going to be able to. And then what? And then what happens? I always tell people, like, look, if you're a little bit crazy, be a little bit crazy. If you're a lover, be a lover. If you're a fighter, be a fighter. But be who you are, because there's someone out there for everyone. I know I can be a lot. Oh my, like, whoever dates me, like, think about it, I TikTok. I'm fucking 34 years old and I TikTok. So I'm a lot. I get it. I travel 100 miles a minute. I'm doing a million different things every fucking day. I won't deny that. I won't hide that, because the person I'm going to be with, I don't want them to think that I'm this other type of person. No, this is who I am. If you don't like it, no big deal. Like, I have many women that have curved me, or many women that didn't want to go on dates with me, that didn't like me, didn't want to get to know me because they're like, hey, this is what I don't like about you. And I respect it. Hey, cool. I'm not going to change. Yeah. And I'm glad you tell me this up front so we don't waste each other's time. Tell me, hey, you know what, Ricki? Can't stand that you TikTok. I hate it. No problem. Cool. No big deal. Let's move our separate ways. Hey, Ricki, I hate that you're always doing this, this, and this. I can't. I don't like that. Hey, no problem. Appreciate the honesty. I got no problem with that, because that's who I am. I'm not going to change to fit someone else's mold. If I'm a round peg, I'm not trying to fit in a square hole. If I'm a square peg, I'm not trying to fit in a round hole. I am me. I'm this whatever shape I am, and I'm going to find the exact hole that I'm going to fit in perfectly. For lack of a better expression. Yeah. But you get what I'm saying,
I get
right?
what you're saying, yeah. So, Ricki, what do you got coming up? What are you working on? All these goals, all these different projects that you're on.
So
you got the book.
Yeah, the book is, I never thought in a million years I was going to write a book. Again, like I said, I'm borderline illiterate. I'm just not good with words. And after my recent breakup, I journal a lot. Right? It's mostly chicken scratch. And I'm going through all my journal entries, and I've got so many random thoughts, because it's not, I do a gratitude journal, 5-minute journal, a lot of people do. But then I just have a book of notes, and it just says random shit depending on how I'm feeling. And I've been doing this for years. So sometimes they're, like, why can't I find somebody? Like, what is wrong with me? Like, I've been single for 4 years. Why can't I find somebody? Or, hey, I can't wait to find someone. Hey, you know what? I'm going on a date today. Maybe this is going to be my person. I've had that phase in my life where I wanted to find somebody, and I wrote down all these thoughts. And I met somebody recently this year, and I fell head over heels, madly in love, instantly. It was love at first sight. And I've got all these thoughts and these words about, fuck, I can't believe I met this person. I can't believe this happened. Well, then you get dumped. And then I'm at this point where, fuck, like, why me? Like, what the fuck did I do? Why am I not enough? Why wasn't I good enough? Why didn't this work? And then you come to the stage where you start to learn to rebuild and love yourself again. So the book I wrote it's a collection of poems. I've turned all these random thoughts and these words into a little bit of poetry. It's not, poems like you would see, roses are red, violets are blue, but they're just my thoughts transformed into poems. And it's about the 4 stages of what I believe is love. The wanting to find love, the finding love, the losing love, and the self-love. And it's called Heartbreak Love Guided Poetry Journal. So the idea behind is that I share with you my feelings and my thoughts through all these stages of love. And I want you to give me yours. I want you to write down your thoughts and your feelings and write down what's going on through your mind, just as I did over the course of the last year. And not many people have read it yet. It comes out October 22nd. Pre-sale starts September 6th. So not many people have read it other than my family and my publisher. But it's something that was not on the bingo card this year. It was not on the goals at the beginning of the year. But it's one thing that I'm beyond proud of myself for. And when it does come out, I will definitely be celebrating this, because this is a win that I didn't know I could do. And it's a win that I don't know how much it really meant to me until I started doing it. But this was my therapy during this breakup, writing down all these thoughts and transforming them, because I walked myself back through all the stages of love. While I was heartbroken, I was writing down, so many bad things, just like, why am I not going to, I'm beating myself up. And I'm thinking, if I'm doing this, there are millions of other people that are doing the exact same thing. So let me give them a piece of me, in a nice, that sounded really bad, but let me give them a piece of me in a good way. Hey, I'm going through this too. I'm suffering. I'm beating myself up. Let's have this side of me that you guys didn't see. And then give me something from you. You're going through heartbreak, or maybe you found love. When people find love, you don't reflect on it as much because you have it. People reflect when they're missing something, they need something. Well, hey, you know what? You have this. Let's cherish this moment together. Let's write down what makes you so happy about this relationship. Read my poem about love and how happy I am that I met someone, and tell me how happy you are. Tell me what makes, what brings color to your day with your partner. Or maybe you're trying to find love and you're in the stage that many of us are, where it's like, is there someone out there for me? Well, yeah, there is. Have hope, have faith. You never know. Every first date might be your last first date. Sometimes we forget that. And then there's obviously the last stage about self-love. That is possibly the hardest, but the most important, where, hey, you don't need anybody else to feel validated. You have yourself. And if you learn to love yourself, you can be happy. And the relationship you have with yourself is hands down the most important one. And I strongly believe that.
I agree with that 100%. Self-love. I had to learn self-love in that process, in that journey of mine. It was the self-love piece that I had to learn to. I was like, wow, I guess this is what I've been missing this whole time.
And it's tough.
Yeah.
It's tough to look in the mirror and not love yourself. I've been there, and holy crap.
Yeah.
I've looked in the mirror and be like, oh, she left me because I wasn't handsome enough for her. It's like, fuck, I know what I am. I know what I look like. I'm very happy with it. You look in the mirror those days and you're like, fuck, that's why she left me. Or that's why, it didn't work out, is because of the way I look.
Yeah.
Maybe if I dress better, maybe if I trimmed my beard or cut my hair or did this different. It's like, whoa, let's backpedal a bit. It's not because of the way you look. Learn to love yourself again. Learn to work on yourself. Yeah, we're not all perfect. There's all areas of everybody's lives that we can work on, including myself.
Yeah.
But hey, let's get a little bit better each day. But let's learn to love ourselves and our imperfections, because nobody is perfect, and we know that.
Ricki, thank you so much.
I appreciate this, man. This is fun. I got to get you on my podcast too.
Let's do it.
We got to line this up. You're great. It's nice to be on the other side of it. Usually I'm the one controlling the conversation, but it's nice to have you doing this.
No. Listen, I appreciate you sharing your time with me. Thank you for coming through and just having this conversation. I think we need more guys talking about these topics, especially in the dating space, because I think there's a rise in, we'll call them male influencers, who are shutting down this notion of being okay with yourself, self-love, expressing yourself, as opposed to going back to an older generation model of don't express yourself, don't show emotions, bury it, man up, shut up, all those things that will lead to depression, lead to addiction, lead to suicide. So I'm glad to see that what you're doing has purpose and meaning, even through the social channels. Like when you say you're a 34-year-old man making TikToks, yeah, but you're talking about topics that are relevant, that I think more men need to also understand and listen to. So thank you, sir, for doing those. And thank you so much for your time, brother. I appreciate it.
Appreciate you.
I appreciate you, man.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, everybody.